Committee of the whole meeting, special town board meeting for May 14th. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
John Basley, first ward.
Bill Carlos, second ward.
Joe Conti, third ward.
Michael Safone, fourth ward.
Stefan Krakauer, fifth ward.
Ann Schurshin, sixth ward.
Todd Tancredi, supervisor.
Felicia Salvatore, town clerk.
And our council will hopefully be joining us shortly. Item number one on our special town board meeting agenda has been removed. We're going to get a definitive name for the vacancy, but we've got a couple names in play right now, so we're going to remove item number one, and I'd like to go right to item number two. Neil, would you, regarding number two, just give us a brief summary?
The legislation on the plumbing code we're talking
Yes, yes. Set the public hearing date?
Yes. The plumbing code, as it's currently written, provides for licensing of plumbers in the town, as it has for a long time. Recently, the library project, when they bid the project, they paid, it's a public project, they publicly bid it. And the low bidder that was selected is not licensed in the town of Poughkeepsie. He's licensed actually by the city of Albany. So we've been working through trying to figure out what is the quickest route to get them licensed and get this project back up and running. At this particular point in time, because the plumbing portion of the project requires that floors be open and that sort of thing. The project is not quite shut down. There are still other things that are going on to retrofit and repair the building. But in probably a couple of weeks, it's going to be a critical path, and they would probably likely have to stop work altogether to await a resolution of the licensing for the plumber who is the low bidder. One of the things that we've been talking about is that there is a special permit provision in our current code that allows for the issuance of a plumbing permit. I think it's twice a year, a job-specific, site-specific project, but it still requires a license, a licensed plumber, or somebody who is licensed by a municipality for which we have a reciprocal agreement, which presently is only Putnam County. In the past, that reciprocity did extend to Westchester County. They had changed their licensing test procedures. They use a different test than ours, and that's apparently one of the requirements is that there's the reciprocity requires that the other municipality use a testing procedure that is the equivalent of the one that we have. And there's different testing, there's different ways to administer the test. Some municipalities make up their own. City of Albany makes up their own. The town uses an online vendor. I've forgotten.
Yeah, Prometric.
Prometric.
Yeah, and we have tests 3 times a year.
Yeah, and right. It's not administered on a rolling basis. It's only administered 3 times a year.
I thought it was administered in person, isn't it?
Yeah, they have a proctor.
Right.
A proctor come here.
It's not online.
I thought they went to
I
the
thought
online.
it was online as well.
No, we're talking
I thought they
about
went fairly recent.
fairly recently. No, we're talking about switching to one where it'll be on a different site. That they have the test available 6 days a week, and it's actually in Albany and in Westchester.
Okay.
So, and it would be lower
I thought
cost.
that had been implemented already.
No, it hasn't been implemented already, but they are talking about taking a test case, and this plumber could be our test case if he's willing to take the test in the next 2 weeks and show that he has 10 years of experience. We could just license him as a plumber.
I don't think that he's unwilling to provide his credentials, take the test. I've spoken to him about 2 weeks ago at this point. He's willing to do that, but if you take a look at the other procedures to obtain a license, it requires submittal of qualifications, fine, but there's also some other information that you have to provide relating to from the Social Security Administration.
And
it takes weeks to get some of that stuff.
I was told months. for the Social Security. But in the town code, it just says demonstrate 10 years of experience. Do we have to come up with the Social Security, or are there other equivalents that could be provided?
The way I'm reading it, that's the requirement. I mean,
Okay.
the idea is that
Wait, is it in the code or not in the code?
I believe it's in the code.
I just looked it up. It just said 10 years of experience.
Okay.
Or look at it again. Maybe it's in a
The
different
other,
part.
the other question I have is the low bidder. There was nothing in the bid package that required them to actually be a
I
licensed
didn't
plumber.
see the bid
and
package.
But wouldn't,
I don't know that it did or did not.
I just want Neil to give a
Yeah, just
summary.
kind of the overview
Then
here
want to
is that
allow
we have-
questions on the town board
Right.
agenda from the public, but I wanted them to know a little bit about what we're doing.
Right.
and-
What you have in front of you is
then we-
an amendment that would allow, on a case-by-case basis, the issuance of a special permit for a specific job by the building inspector, with somebody who comes in and has it be for a publicly bid job, as opposed to, let's say, a private job. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. That's what you're looking at.
And when was the last time we had an exam?
The next one coming up is the end of June, so 3 months before that. I mean, 4
So-
months.
March, February?
February, March.
Yeah.
And this project started in November?
Well, they started without permits in November, yeah. Yeah, that's a whole different issue.
Now, let's just let's try to
Yeah.
keep a format
We
here.
issued, yeah, we are waiting to issue, we've issued some permits. We are waiting to issue the plumbing permit at this point, but depending how this licensing question gets issued. There are other permits that are awaiting to be issued based on certification that some of the work that had been commenced in November was done in accordance with the building plans. We're still awaiting architect certifications on that. So there are portions of the permits have been issued.
Okay. I'd like to just, if everyone at the town board agrees, like to allow the public to comment on the agenda, which is this one item, because we usually do that and we haven't done it yet, but I wanted to give have a little summary of what we're talking about. So I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for public comment on agenda items.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anybody here to speak to this agenda item? Doreen?
So can I make a comment about the Committee of the Whole agenda, ask a question on
Yeah,
that,
go.
or later?
Well, you can, not necessarily going to be answered now, but you can make a comment on it
Okay, I
now,
was just
sure.
wondering where and I'm sure you'll say it later, where the
Sure.
LVS subdivision
Okay.
is, but I'm sure that'll be covered. Okay, and then this thing with the library,
Yes.
I would worry about setting a precedent, and also the fact that, it was the low bidder. They've already started work, without permits. They're already late on a report that was due. I just had filed a FOIL request and saw that the inspection report says that the site architect had been reminded last week that the April report was due, and as of yesterday, it still had not been received. So I'm worried about the lack of compliance on this project. So I would hope you would keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Doreen. Anybody else? Tom, if you're going to make just general comments, I'm going to give you a chance as soon as all right, anybody else from the public? All right, make a motion to resume the rules.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Tom Lawrence is here, what's your exact title, Executive Director of the Library District, and I'm sure you'd like to make a few comments.
This is not the way we want this project to unfold, but there are certain complications that we've experienced. What is presented to us now and what we're asking that the town board consider is a remedy to a problem that really focuses on how public works permitting is done and how the current town code affects how public works permitting is granted. When we bid a job, because we're a public corporation, we have to abide by public bidding. We have to award a contract to the lowest reasonable bid, and we have to produce a quality of work that's expected out of a public works contract. The problem that we have now is that the lowest bidder is not licensed to do plumbing work. There is the current option available for the plumbing board to grant a special permit. There is an apparent unwillingness of the plumbing board to do that. And again, what you're experiencing here is the need to look at the plumbing code in relation to a public works job, which really doesn't come up that often. When you look at the public works that you have in this community, it's pretty limited. You've got my building, you've got, I would imagine, fire district buildings, but you don't have school districts, you don't have county buildings, because they have separate authorities that have jurisdiction over how they do things. So this element of the town code creates a problem for a public works corporation wanting to comply with low bidding, yet not sole source the bid to somebody who's pre-licensed in the town of Poughkeepsie. The bid documents do indicate that the owner, us, is responsible for getting the building permit, and any other permits required to complete the job are the responsibility of the contractor. This contractor felt that he would be given the courtesy of a special permit because he is a licensed, long-tenured plumber in the city of Albany with a raft of public works jobs throughout the entire capital district, not just in the city of Albany. That appears not to be a willing action on the part of the local plumbing board. So that creates a serious complication for us. If we need to rebid the job, it's going to bring everything to a halt, possibly for up to 6 months, with seriously unintended consequences of cost that the taxpayers are going to have to bear.
I have a question. What was the next lowest bid that came in?
$30,000 more.
Okay. And did the bid specifications require that the individual be licensed or have the appropriate licenses?
No, because it would not comply with the open bid law. You can't do that. You can't
require that whoever's bidding is actually able to do the job?
They have to be eligible for a license. You can't say you must have an existing
let
license.
me ask you, when was the bid awarded?
The contract was signed in early November.
So why didn't the plumber from Albany come to the town of Poughkeepsie as soon as he got that bid award and try to remedy that? Because my impression is that the plumbing, and correct me if I'm, the plumbing board met this month?
Yeah,
Yes.
they meet every month.
But
There was an exam.
the application
May.
wasn't in front of the plumbing board for this plumber?
Because the contractor felt the special permit was going to be allowed.
I think he thought there was a reciprocal relationship.
Right, but the
that's my
special
view.
permit would have had to be
Nah.
issued by the plumbing board based on our code. So
Correct.
And he was aware of that.
I would imagine that he was at the time, yeah.
Did he call town hall? Because they would have told him the test was coming up.
Well, in order to sit for the test, you have to make the application, and with the application, you need the Social Security data, which even Ann admits can take months to get.
Right,
So
but-
he wouldn't have had the contract in hand until mid-November. He would not have been able to
I had the
sit for that
City of
exam.
I had the City of Albany call, and I think the plumber thought there was this relationship.
Yeah.
And when I was talking to the City of Albany inspector, he was talking about Poughkeepsie this, Poughkeepsie that, and at one point he goes, the City of Poughkeepsie. And I go, well, wait a minute. I think that's
Yeah,
the problem.
problem.
You're speaking of the town of Poughkeepsie, and his job's in the town of Poughkeepsie. This isn't, because he said they'd had a relationship with the City of Poughkeepsie for some other work, and I said, we're not the city, that might be the problem.
Yeah.
But the plumber himself, I was on the plumbing board for an extended period of time, and the plumbers all know the rules. From my experience, local plumbers all know what the rules are. They know where there's reciprocity. They know what other towns, what other counties they're able to work in. They understand the licensing requirement. And without getting into the whole discussion of whether we should or shouldn't license, we do. The plumber who got the job in November should have been, not even proactive, just conscious, and showed up and said, I'm going to be working in the town of Poughkeepsie. I'm going to need, clearly he realized he would need to pull a plumbing permit. I'm guessing, right? So at that point, you think if you're getting a large job, you'd think he'd be engaged, come into the town of Poughkeepsie, find out what do I got to do to get this started or to pursue this process. The idea that, geez, I just thought they'd wave me in is...
Well, Stefan, along that line, you're absolutely right, but as you're saying, he's done so many jobs in the Capital District, it's not like he's brand new at this. He just thought he could just walk in and be in its
Yeah.
municipality and just walk and get, with free reign.
May have been under the poor assumption that the city and the town of Poughkeepsie have reciprocity with each other, and we don't.
But he didn't come and try to apply
he-
for any permits.
Right,
Correct.
right.
If he
Like-
contacted somebody in November when you let the bid, he could have taken the exam in April or May when we gave it, and we wouldn't be sitting here this tonight.
I mean,
So you're asking us to consider changing our law because your plumber screwed up. That doesn't make
Well-
any sense to me.
I think it's more than that. I think it's your town plumbing board has the opportunity to make this happen and are apparently choosing not to.
I'm not sure they do
Plumber
based,
coulda
I'm not
taken-
sure they do based on the code. As I read it, we need to have this reciprocal program, and we don't with the city of Albany. So just
Yeah.
from my point of view, we all recognize there's a big problem here. There's a big screw up, for lack of a better term. The question is, how do we resolve it? Do we want to resolve it? It is a public project. Any cost overruns, any delays are going to be borne by the taxpayers that we represent and taxpayers of the city of Poughkeepsie. So that's why it's here tonight. That's the decision I think we have. We can say no, let them restart and
We're setting it for a public hearing, so why don't we do that, and then whenever
well,
the public talk to us.
well, I
Well,
agree, but I just think
gotta
if we aren't going to have.
advertise and go through the whole process. So
Right.
I would, if we're not going to do it,
Right, I
that would
agree.
probably
If
be
we're not
the
gonna
time
do
pull
it, then
plug.
let's not
The one thing before
Do
we go any further with even we're going to set a date for a public hearing. One of the concerns that I have is I think the criteria that we're adding should be, and I'm not completely opposed to the idea of the building inspector having the authority to do this in addition to the plumbing board, but I think the criteria should be either identical or similar in that the suggested language, currently if the plumbing board were to allow this plumber in, then he has to it's provided that the applicant is licensed by another municipality that has a comparable test or licensing requirements, and said municipality offers a similar reciprocal program for licensees of the town of Poughkeepsie. Clearly, Albany doesn't Albany doesn't have a reciprocal program with the town of Poughkeepsie right
Right.
now. So to me, I would take that part out because we're just basically sort of tying our hands, I think, unnecessarily when we want to make some exceptions. But I do think that it should be comparable test and licensing requirements, but at the very least, it should be comparable licensing requirements because we shouldn't allow plumbers, if we have plumbing licensing, if we're going to allow somebody to come in for a 1 or 2 time basis per year, they should have the same standards or same requirements as the guy who's been here all along and following our rules. So in order to be fair to the plumbers that are licensed and are following the rules, anyone coming in from another jurisdiction should have to
meet that
meet our
standard.
requirements.
Right, right.
The other thing is, it's at a cost of $250 per permit per year. If you are a licensed plumber in the town of Poughkeepsie, I think the plumbing license is $350.
Yeah, it is $350.
And to sit for the test, it's $200. So again, I think, even if you're doing one job, you should kind of level that playing field. So I think the permit fee for someone coming in for one job should at least be equal to the license and test fee so that again, we want to encourage people, if we do continue to have licensing, to follow our rules and get a license, not to kind of come in through exceptions. So I think the fee should be equal to that $550 as a way to kind of make it even so that when people are bidding on these jobs,
It's comparable.
right. That being said, again, I think from a point of view of having some flexibility, we probably do want our building inspector, Tim Sickles, to be able to make some of these decisions where we have individuals coming in on a case-by-case basis, and a situation, especially with the library district. The way this is worded, it's not worded just covering the library district or a fire district or something like that. It's worded to cover any individual partnership corporation, so it goes way beyond the library situation. So we could either contract that somewhat to just deal with what we're...
The current language or the proposed
The
language?
proposed language is more broad, so...
Well, it says for a specific projects for public corporation.
Or for district or corporations created by the state legislature, so it's still public.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do think that those require, again, I think Albany doesn't do a standardized test, is that right?
They have their own test that they do. Right.
And we moved away from that because there was a problem in making sure that whenever people came in to get licensed, that they were treated evenly and fairly. So I think we should probably I'd like to say that they should have the same type of test and requirements, but I think the bare minimum, it should be same licensing requirements, so that whether it's 10 years experience and whatever else that they got to provide, they provide that. Tim Sickles can make a determination. They come in, they pay a fee that's comparable to what they would have paid if they got licensed here, and then
So provided that the applicant is licensed by another municipality with a like testing,
just similar to
That's
the
with,
language from the
comparable
applicant
test.
is licensed by another municipality that has
Comparable.
comparable licensing requirements.
So,
Then Mr. Sickles is going to have to determine that to give the special permit?
Yeah.
That's a little,
Well, they got to come in and they'd have to provide it to the plumbing board.
oh, so
or
the
they'd have to-
person coming in provides it to
Right.
Mr. Sickles?
Right.
Because
Yes.
that's who we're giving the power to.
Right,
And he then makes the decision.
right.
We shouldn't have that many of
I'm
them.
sure he'll know
No,
about
the-
questions.
I don't think there will be
it's
many.
my understanding this would move this licensing to something more similar to the way the electricians are licensed.
But we don't license, we don't, I think the only people we
Or
license
permits.
are the plumbers.
The way electrical permits are issued.
but I don't think there's going to be overwhelming number of applicants coming in because of the private.
I mean, the other issue is that, given that it's a public
corporation.
works job, whoever gets the contract and the license is going to have to pay prevailing wage, which for many of the electricians, for many of the plumbers, is almost a disincentive to bid on these kinds of jobs. So when you marry all of these things together, you create a perfect storm that is a little difficult for the library to figure out how to deal with. You know, we have the obligations to go with a low bidder, and it can't be the low bidder, but you have to be pre-licensed before you can bid, which is automatically going to increase the cost.
Well, I think if anybody could bid on it, whether licensed or not in the town of Poughkeepsie, you'd probably get a lot of low bidders, but they wouldn't be appropriate bidders. So I think one of the issues is you question whether the low bidder is an appropriate bidder based on the fact that he's not licensed. The fact that he's done a lot of jobs up in Albany, again, he should know that there's a process.
Well, I think that because
should've-
when you see his qualifications, he's done tons of public works
No, I
in the last
realize that,
5
but
years.
if you ask a quality local licensed plumber what the process is, they will tell you in a second how you got to do it, that you have to be licensed. They'll tell you whether they're licensed in that municipality or whether there's reciprocity there. They all know this because they deal with it every day, how they earn their living. So the idea that he thought he'd just come in and get waved in,
I don't think I'm not sure he thought that stuff on. I think there might have been a mix-up with the
City versus
town.
And
I mean,
complicated that the owner is in the
Maybe
city
I'm
of
giving him the benefit of the
Poughkeepsie.
doubt, but.
No, I know.
But if he had come
I understand what you're saying.
down when you let the bid in November,
There's definitely a
he would
big
have
mess up.
5 months' notice to take the exam, and we wouldn't be here tonight. So common sense says it's the Prubbers' problem, not the town of Poughkeepsie's problem. That means he works for you, your problem.
Well, he works for the public in this instance, so he's
No,
our
he's working
problem,
for the library district.
which is the
I
public.
understand it is
Tom, well,
Prubbers.
I mean, and I don't know how the town board is going to decide, but we're going to take a vote in a minute. But what I'm going to ask you is, regardless of how they decide on this issue, you need to get on top of this project, to stay on top of it. Can't have it. We cannot continue to have problems with lack of permits, lack of oversight. I don't know whether you got to, talk to the management company, who, Palumbo Group or the architects or who, but we need to get, really some range around this project.
I don't disagree with you.
So he would be willing to take the test? If we can work out the other difficulties?
I think we're looking at
I don't
this,
think
I
he's-
think what we're looking at is this resolution, which
Yeah.
will solve that problem.
Yeah,
If
okay.
everybody's willing to go forward with it. What's the pleasure of the town board? I mean, I agree with Stefan. I don't see any sense in setting a public meeting and dragging everyone back if people are inclined to.
Well, I think we need to hear what the public thinks about this. I'm sure the plumbers are going to want to talk.
I mean, my preference would be for it to flow through the normal course of business without making this change, because we have rules, we follow them. The reality is, I don't completely disagree with the idea of having a second option and having the building inspector be put in the place to make a decision on these things, because I think Tim Sickles would do a very good job with that and would handle it appropriately. So the part 2 that we're looking to add, I don't really have a problem with that. And again, I think your plumber made some mistakes in this process. I don't really want to beat you guys up over it because beating you up is beating us up because we pay taxes here. So trying to find a solution to this problem is the most important thing.
I agree.
Item number 2, I think, goes towards finding a global solution to this problem going forward, solves your problem. As long as we make it fair and even-handed, again, when we're licensing, if we're going to make one guy follow a set of rules, we make the other guy follow a set of rules. If one guy's going to pay $550 just to get in the door, the other guy pays $550, then everything starts to get even and fair and reasonable, and that's fine. I just like the fact that when, we want to be able to say, this is how you do it. And the comparable test part, there's some language in the plumbing code that I would like to clean up, because comparable test is even a little bit vague in that, it's a comparable test could be what Albany does, but how do we know? Because we don't administer the test ourselves. So to me, the licensing requirements are things that we can click down through the list, say this is what they say you have to have, 10 years experience, this, and that. We can click down through that, say, yeah, they meet that. Tim Sickles can review it, take a look and say, yeah, this is okay to let this plumber into the town of Poughkeepsie to do this project.
I mean, there's no guarantee that the new test you're going to is even comparable to the old test.
Right, that's why I say there's some issues to begin with the way the code is written. I think it should be very objective, that anybody can read our code and figure out what you're supposed to do to follow the rules. I'm not completely convinced that we're there yet. I think adding number 2 helps in situations like this, and probably a few other situations where we have some bumps in the road. Tim Sickles is perfectly capable of making this decision, or the plumbing board. The plumbing board, in my experience, has always been very fair and even-handed. So I don't know what's going on here or not going on, but my experience is the plumbers have been fair and even-handed. When you sit down and talk to them, they seem to be pretty good to work with. So this will give us another option going forward. I'm fine with putting it on for public.
Jay.
The rest of the board is.
So you want to read it?
Before you do that, do you want to amend it?
We want to add the sentence at the end.
Be at a cost of $550?
Well, can we make that amendment?
You want to, sure.
I mean, I would amend it to either make it $550 or the cost comparable to annual license fee and test.
Not to be
test
less
fee.
than.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it probably should.
But if you word it so that it's comparable to the annual licensing fee and the testing fee, then if we raise that and we don't remember to raise this in this
still gonna have to go
code,
up.
it stays equal.
Okay, so it would be at a cost equal to the licensing and testing fee, is that right?
Okay.
Yes.
Per permit, provided that the applicant is licensed by another municipality in the state of New York, which has licensing requirements comparable to those of the town of Poughkeepsie.
Yep.
I think that's closer.
So moved.
And not twice a year, it's per job, right?
Second.
Per job, yeah.
Yes.
Twice.
Per job.
Same job, per job.
Per job.
Good job.
And they can only come in twice.
Twice.
And testing.
Okay.
So you got a second on that?
Well, we got to let Jay read the resolution.
Well, on the amendment.
So moved. The whole thing.
Okay, so you moved that?
Yes, I did.
And who seconded it?
I second it.
He did too.
Joe did too. That would be a third.
At a cost equal to the licensing and testing fee, comma, per permit. And then this is, which has licensing requirements comparable to those of the town of Poughkeepsie. Okay.
Gotta read this one because last.
All right, Jay, you ready?
Yeah, maybe.
Read
Go ahead.
Be it resolved, the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie is hereby set the 21st day of May 2014, 7 p.m., Town Hall, Town of Poughkeepsie, 1 Over Rocker Road, Poughkeepsie, New York, as and for the time, date, and place of a public hearing to consider amendments to the Town of Poughkeepsie Plumbing Code, Chapter 154, Article 4, Chapter 154-26, issuance, denial, and revocation of plumber's license, certificate of insurance, reciprocity, special permits, specifically 154-26D entitled permits, which amendment are as follows, with the words underlined to be added and those stricken to be deleted. 154-26, special permits. 1, the Town of Poughkeepsie Planning Board may in its discretion issue a permit to an individual or corporation who is not licensed by the Town of Poughkeepsie Plumbing Board for a specific project twice a year at a cost of $250 per permit, provided the applicant is licensed by another municipality that has a comparable test or license requirement, and said municipality offers a similar reciprocal program for licenses of the Town of Poughkeepsie. It is within the sole and absolute discretion of the Town of Poughkeepsie Plumbing Board to ensure that the criteria of the licensing community or municipality is the same as the Town of Poughkeepsie at a cost equal to licensing fees. 2, notwithstanding anything in this chapter to the contrary, the building inspector may in his or her discretion issue a permit to an individual, partnership, or corporation who is not licensed by the Town of Poughkeepsie Plumbing Board for a specific project, for a municipal corporation, or for a district or corporation created by a state legislator twice a year at cost equal to the licensing fee and testing fee per permit, provided the applicant is licensed by another municipality in the state of New York, and B, which has licensing requiring to be equal to the Town of Poughkeepsie. And be it further
Comparable?
comparable to the Town of Poughkeepsie. Sorry.
Sorry.
And be it further resolved, the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie determines that this is an action is a type 2 action, does further determine that no further environmental action is required. Be it further resolved that said local law, if adopted, shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, just amend paragraph 1 so that it would be at a cost comparable to the licensing and testing fee.
Did you say that?
Rather than
He
250.
said fees.
Yeah, I think you said
He
that.
said fees, though.
No, on paragraph 1, it was still 250.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to pay,
Yeah,
you want to
comparable.
change special permits as well?
Yeah, because it's the same thing, it's just with
All right.
Plumbing Board or
Just
Tim
2 weeks.
Sickles.
Okay, all right, I second that. All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor of the resolution
Aye.
as amended? So moved. This is the end of our special town board meeting. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the special town board meeting.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion to open the committee of the whole meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Our first agenda item is a presentation by Hudson Heritage Project Conceptual Design.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicholas Manoia, and I am one of the managing members of Diversified Realty Advisors. And George, if you don't mind, you want to hand out the brochures? We have a couple of handouts that you can leaf through while we're making our presentation, or at your leisure, take a look through them. It's some information on the history of our company, and also a scaled-down version of the plan that we're going to show you tonight. First of all, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be here this evening. The intent is to provide you with some information as to the current status of our work in connection with the Hudson Heritage property, which we acquired in November of last year. The acquisition is a joint venture between my firm, which is located in Summit, New Jersey, and a brownfield redevelopment company by the name of EFG, Enviro Finance Group, out of Denver, Colorado. We acquired the property, as I said, in November, and we've been working steadily behind the scenes for the last 6 or 7 months to assemble what we believe is a first-class team to be able to present ultimately a plan of development on a formal basis to the town of Poughkeepsie, the town board, and the planning board. So this evening, we're certainly not looking for any action to be taken. It's purely informational. We come before the board to give you an update as to who we are, what we've been up to, and to unveil for the first time publicly a concept plan that we've worked on for the last 6 or 7 months. Before I do that, I'll give you a little bit of background about the two firms that represent the current ownership of the property. My firm is in the real estate development business, primarily focused on residential construction and development, and has been for the last 25 or so years. We have significant experience in high-end residential and multifamily construction and development. We're a fully integrated firm that does land use development, approvals, construction, and property management. So we're kind of soup to nuts from A to Z with a project of this particular magnitude. We tend to take on some of the more challenging projects. We make a business out of actually acquiring failed projects in downturns, which the recession that we recently came through being a good example. We've bought a number of failed projects in several states in the Northeast that were either half-built or bank foreclosures or bankruptcies and things like that. This project wasn't in that category, but it's of a design and nature that has inherently tremendous complexities to it in terms of the underpinnings of the site, which has some contamination. There's underground contamination on this property in a portion of the northernmost portion. And there's also, as you can imagine, a tremendous amount of asbestos and lead-based paint. I do have an aerial on the board. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the property and knows of its location. But at least we can draw your attention to the aerial just to give you a sense of where the property is located and what the rooftops look like for purposes of just understanding the underlying dynamics of what the site is made of today. You can actually see the, George, if you don't mind pointing out the main building where the fire happened, it's kind of the center of the aerial there.
We've got main admin.
George, I think the microphone should work. Fisher, can you just see if, hopefully the batteries are good now, just turn it on and give it a minute, and it should be on the air. There you go.
Obviously, on the southern portion of the drawing there is Route 9, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give you the orientation.
Yeah.
You've got the main admin building right here. This is the north wing, central, and the south wing.
And you can actually see, if you can, from where you're sitting, that the roof of the entire the south wing of the main building was burned off and substantially collapsed. Just to give you a sense of where we are on the, and that's about 156 acres is what we acquired, which is about half of the state's property. They had roughly 300 acres when the property was sold to CPC approximately 10 years ago. It was subdivided into three parcels actually, one on the Hudson River. And then the portion just to the east of us, which is still about 150 acres. So we acquired about 156 acres with 50-some properties on 50-some buildings, compromising somewhere north of a million, 1.2 million square feet of institutional space. Over the last several months, we've had the pleasure of meeting with many members of the town of Poughkeepsie staff and members of the town board and the planning board and other interested parties as we kind of take in and absorb a number of thoughts from various aspects and walks of life here in the town of Poughkeepsie to try to get an understanding of some of the desires, some of the thoughts, some of the history of the programming of the property, so that we could encapsulate all of those thoughts into the underpinnings of what ultimately was a beauty contest, if you will, between three master plan community organizations that held a charrette of their design schemes before us so that we could ultimately choose the one that we thought was most representative of what was the underlying zoning on the property, the local market, the demographics, the site location, the topography, and everything else that's attendant to a property of this scale and nature. Ultimately, we ended up choosing, ironically enough, a company called Looney Ricks, which was a company that had done some design work on the property many, many years ago when the zoning was first put in place and the original scoping document was developed. That company had the most thorough understanding, we believe, of the property and the local flair for architecture, design, demand for housing, retail, etc. So although we brought three firms that had a national presence with tremendous master planning experience, we ended up picking the Looney Ricks firm out of Princeton, New Jersey, to continue with the endeavor that they had embarked on a number of years ago with the initial plan that they had done. They gave us a brand new concept which was based largely on their current thinking of what the property should ultimately be developed as, but we liked the underpinnings of what they had developed initially on the property, which led us to invite them in for this programming of the property. At this point, I think what I'd like to do is show you the plan that we developed and look for some feedback. We'll go over some of the details and give you a general sense of it. We're certainly not here we want to give you kind of a 30,000 square foot view, if you will, of what we think the property will ultimately look like in terms of its master planning, again, based on the current underlying zoning, which allows up to 750 units of residential housing and 350,000 square feet of retail/commercial space based on certain hurdles or achievements that could happen with thresholds of development. And again, we're not here to really get into the nuts and bolts specifically about the zoning. It's just to give you a sense of who we are, where we are in the process, and what we think the programming of the property from a master plan community perspective will look like. Before I do that, let me regress 1 second and just give you a sense of some of the other projects that our firm does as a matter of course. Coincidentally, those of you that may be Democrats and President Obama fans, President Obama was in Westchester today and actually landed on a property that we have under contract, which is the GM site in Sleepy Hollow, adjacent to Tarrytown. The presidential helicopter was there for the president to give a speech on federal infrastructure-related projects, today being, of course, the Tappan Zee Bridge. That property, which is about 150 acres on the Hudson River, the former GM assembly plant, we have under contract for the development of some 1,200 units of housing and associated retail, hotel, and entertainment. So that's another property that we do have in the marketplace. We also have a project under construction in Newburgh, New York, currently, which is a 160-unit residential multifamily apartment complex at the intersection of Route 84 and 87. Recently, we obtained approvals in the town of New Windsor for a project of 270 units, again, multifamily rental community, luxury rental community, and that project is about to break ground within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So we do have a fairly significant presence, and we also have a project up in Hyde Park, New York, which was a failed project. We bought from a local bank, which is the River Ridge Townhouse Community on the Hudson River. It's 160 townhouses, 30 of which got built, and we're there now completing the construction of the clubhouse, which failed and never was constructed, and we'll begin commencing this year with the sale of the remainder of the townhouses there. So this project, the Hudson Heritage Project, is actually the fourth that we have in New York State in this particular market. So we're not a newcomer to the area. Just as an aside, I actually grew up in upstate New York. I've lived in New Jersey for the last several decades professionally, most of my professional career, but I'm from Binghamton, New York originally, for whatever that's worth. So George, let's roll out the plan so that we can give them some highlights. Okay, so the orientation here, everybody can obviously figure out where the Hudson River is. Route 9 is just to the right of that. And the property, the green between Route 9 and the Hudson River was that portion of the property which was given up by the state, for a park along the Hudson River. Our portion, which is all the green and red, is about 156 acres. What we show here is to the south of us. George, just point out where the Home Depot is, just to give a little sense of, make sure everybody. So this is the Home Depot. Our property on Winslow Gate Road is directly north of the Home Depot, and of course Marist College is across the street on Route 9. So directly north of Home Depot, we have 156 acres, current zoning 700 up to 750 residential units and 350,000 square feet of retail and commercial. What this plan shows is a combination of a multitude of housing types, which do make up to 750 residential units, and also builds into it about 35 or 40 acres of commercial retail development at the southern end of the site off of Winslow, adjacent to Home Depot, with some larger box retail combined with a kind of a town center, smaller scale, perhaps horizontal parking, directly off of Route 9, inviting pedestrian traffic and more of a scaled-down version of your typical strip center that would perhaps be up and down, Wappinger, Poughkeepsie, and so on, up and down Route 9. So it's a different scale than your typical, big box or neighborhood strip center. But both are incorporated here for a couple of reasons. One, that's what the market is today. We design projects that are not necessarily a form of art, but cater to the market. And the market being what it is today on the heels of a recession, taking everything that we know into consideration and working with a very large regional retail developer that we're working very closely with right now to form an alliance with to develop that retail portion of the property. This is the scheme that we think works in the current economic environment, which will in large part be the driver for how this property gets developed. There are, by conservative estimates, some $12 to $15 million worth of demolition that has to happen on this site between the asbestos and other construction-related waste, not including the environmental work that has to happen on the north part of the property. And George, if you can just, for our purposes, north and south, define roughly where the north is as relates to the brownfield program.
Basically right here.
So from that line moving north, we've separated the property not by subdivision, but by environmental for purposes of the brownfield redevelopment program at the state level. The north part of the property has been qualified by the state for inclusion in the brownfield cleanup program, otherwise known as BCP. And that the DEC is administering and providing us guidance on what has to happen in order for further testing under the powerhouse, the auto center, the mechanic shop, and other parts of the property that had underground soil-related contamination. The rest of the property down to the south, and George, if you can just pick up that aerial one more time. Unfortunately, the largest buildings on the property are located in the southern portion. If you can just circle that area for a second, George. That's where the largest buildings are. That's Cheney, Ryan, and the Rec Center. That's where the most costly demolition is, and unfortunately, that part of the property does not qualify for the brownfield cleanup program. So there are no state incentives there because it's the good and the bad. The property is not dirty enough environmentally at a subsurface level to qualify for the program. But unfortunately, that leaves us with the most asbestos and lead paint and other related demolition costs to be borne by us as a private developer. So that's part of the challenge of developing a property of this magnitude and complexity and the nature of the beast, so to speak. And by the way, it might be interesting point here to note that our partner, and one of the reasons we brought in this brownfield redevelopment company, and you'll see it when you flip through the history of EFG, they recently completed the remediation and demolition of about 1.1 million square feet of hospital outside Denver, Colorado. So they have that specific experience. They've been through it many times. That's what they do as a firm, and they do it, every day, all day. And they make a great partner for us in that regard. So this residential incorporates, as I said, many forms of housing. It's not easy to see on this plan, but we actually have saved under this plan several of the existing buildings for rehabilitation. The primary building being the center part of the admin building, which George is pointing to now. That's the building that everybody knows, that recognizes the architecture, very Gothic architecture, sits opposite what was known as the Great Lawn, the area that you see that under this plan we've preserved and in fact expanded in its entirety. An original 18 acres has now been moved up to maybe 40, 50, 60 acres of preserved area that we would restore the park essentially and to have as an open land, but leaving the admin building for some type of restoration, whether it's hotel, some type of community, office building. We're not sure yet. We've been looking around the country, soliciting proposals, talking to brokers, trying to find some example of viable use for the building, particularly in light of the lack of incentives that may be available project-wide. It's challenging, but that 80,000 square feet under this plan is contemplated to be preserved and restored, as well as three other buildings behind them. And George, if you can just point to them. Right in that area there was the church, the library, and one other building, George. What was it? The entertainment building. There are three buildings there that we believe could be fundamental to the overall recreation for the residents here in this community. And again, with different housing styles, a significant amount of on-site recreation. There'll be walking trails, there'll be on-site recreation, maybe, computer areas, lounges, clubhouses, swimming pools, those types of things that once we get into the details of the plan, will start to emerge. Again, this is just an initial first blush at a concept. We call it a blocking plan to lay out how we think the community will function and what the look and feel of it will be from a kind of a 30,000 square foot view. A lot of open space, as you can see. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's looking to me like 40-50% of the property in one form or another will be open space, primarily everything north of the existing entrance to the property, just north of Winslow. From there all the way up to the border of Hyde Park is pretty much open space. We don't see developing anything along that area and just leaving that as a green belt to buffer all the residential throughout the property. George, I miss anything significant? I would point your attention to in the Diversified Realty Advisor brochure, the last page gives a sense of what our development team is here, and you'll note that on the development consultants, I'd like to make specific note to a few of our consultants who are this evening. Richard Cantor is our local counsel. Richard is here this evening from Tayan and Constantino. Our resident engineers on this project, Chase & Company, Stuart Messenger is here this evening. We've got Focus Media. I think Bill Madden is here this evening as our public relations firm. And you'll see the list of the rest of all of these consultants have already been retained, by the way. So this entire team has already been put together. This is not just a wish list. These people have been engaged, they've been funded, and this project is very much on the road to moving toward, hopefully, ultimately, a development approval. And most of these consultants have been chosen for their local expertise or their specific site-related expertise or the fact that they were New York-based companies, which we try to do when we come into an area. I think there's only, if I'm not mistaken, interestingly enough, the only firm from New Jersey, which is where we're from, is the one that we inherited when we got here with the project, which was the Looney Ricks firm that had done some initial consultation and design work on the project. The rest of these consultants were either recommended to us by other local consultants, namely the Chazen firm or others here in the community, and that's the team that we had put together. So, again, I thank some of the members of that team that are here this evening. I really think I've covered, at least on a very global basis, who we are and what this programming looks like. We're at the stage now where we need to amend the scoping document that was done for this property some number of years ago based on the plan that we've put together and the, I don't know, maybe 8, 10, 12 meetings that we've had with the Town of Poughkeepsie staff over the last 6 or 7 months. So we've taken a lot of dialogue into consideration and are working on a form and a format for amending the underlying zoning and working on a new scoping document that we think is more appropriate for where we are in the economic cycle and what this property we believe requires in accordance with the master plan which we've developed. So we intend to be here again tomorrow night to make a similar presentation before the planning board, and we continue to work every day in a big way. And by the way, I forgot to introduce George. George Carfagno is our project coordinator in-house and pretty much lives, breathes, and eats, sleeps the town of Poughkeepsie. So we don't want to forget George. So if you have any questions, we're happy to address them now. It's a lot to absorb. It's a big project. There's going to be a lot going on there. We think we've worked very hard to address what we think are the local comments. It's, I'm sure, not going to be without some controversy. There's everybody has some thoughts on a project of this scale and one that's got as much history as this one does. And I'm sure along the way there'll be a couple of bumps in the road, but we're working hard behind the scenes to try to avoid as many of those that we can so that we can ultimately bring this project out of the ground as quickly as we can, knowing that it's probably good timing from the standpoint of let's get it on the tax rolls and start to make something happen there after so many years of it being a defunct project.
One quick question, at least with the conceptual plan, the buildings that are along Route 9, how much, what kind of setback is there? What kind of visual impact do you think there will be along Route 9?
Let me defer to Stuart and see if he can take a ballpark guess on what the scale is there and how far back you think those couple of buildings are, Stuart.
Stuart, can you come, we need to get you on the microphone.
Stuart Messer from Chase & Companies.
I think those are between 50 and 100 feet back, and you'll see there's only a couple of pads near the road. The idea is to set most of the development back a good ways. So it won't be quite the strip that you see to the south in front of the Home Depot.
Okay. Anybody have anything?
The property west of Route 9 there, bordering Hudson River. What are you, I see the plans. Is that just open green space?
That property is not our property. That's still owned by the state. So
okay. I saw with the color shot of it. I thought you were saying.
Yeah, we're just showing that because it is open space by the state. When when they sold off this piece, they retained that as I believe it's open. It's owned by the state, right?
The park is there.
The park is there. Yeah, that's the park.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the park.
Do you plan on retaining most of those buildings, or just the one main building? Or do you plan on retaining any of those?
Actually, to the contrary, most of those buildings, and you know what, you raise an interesting point that I neglected to mention. Several of the consultants that are on the site on a daily basis now are that we hired a structural engineering firm to evaluate all of the buildings on the property, just as a baseline to determine whether or not we should even consider using certain buildings for adaptive reuse. In addition, there's a large company that's doing an asbestos survey of every building, building by building, floor by floor, room by room, which is obviously required in order to remediate the asbestos. So as we looked at not only the structural aspect, but the economic reality of restoration of some of these buildings based on their structural condition, their floor planning, whatever it might be, taking into consideration the overlay of this plan, ultimately for us, there are only 4 buildings out of everything that's there that we intend to try to save. Namely the admin building, which in and of itself is a spectacular building architecturally, and the buildings in the rear of it there, the church, the library, and the rec building that we think can be adaptively reused for recreation for the residents.
I like the fact that you're using LRK. I think they've done a good job at looking at this property. And I do think that we do need the development up there, and it's got to make sense. I know you had said you kind of build to the market. I think a project of this size isn't going to get built today. The market's pretty bad today, so I'd like to see it built to not just the market today and say, geez, we can't really get anything good today, so we'll just build whatever we can. I'd like to make, and I hope that you will do that, and that you build to the market over the next 10 years or so as to what this build out probably would be, so that we're not looking at, we got to fill it with it. Because we have developers who come through town and say, the only people right now are McDonald's and Quick Checks, and so that's what we're going to build. And the reality is, something like this isn't a McDonald's or Quick Check type of project. It's a big project. It's going to take a lot of time. I do think it would be nice to be working with you, not working against you through this. So I hope that you look at it from the long-term perspective, and the development and the project is something that we all look at after the fact and are proud of, and say, geez, this is nice that we took a big piece of property in the town of Poughkeepsie and made it something that other municipalities would like to have happen in their town. And I do think that the plan is starting to go in that direction. It had been kind of pushed in that direction before. One of my concerns is a residential density count, and I had indicated that previously. I'd like to see that number come down. I do have some concerns as far as I'm sure you're going to look at the viability of your project, and then you look at the viability of the other projects already in the pipeline in the town of Poughkeepsie and existing residential, and what the impact can be to the market around us. But I don't think we want to overbuild our town, because that would be bad. The 750 number that was put into that code was the absolute high-end number with a whole bunch of hoops to jump through. I realize some of those hoops might not be exactly realistic given the current economy. Some of them make sense, some of them don't make sense, but I do hope that you put together a very nice mixed-use project that has some retail, office if you can get in there. I realize it's not something you can do today, but some office space or some different type of commercial that's not just strip retail, which you alluded to. When you look at Poughkeepsie and Route 9, Poughkeepsie and Wappingers in the Route 9 corridor, strip retail seems to be a defining factor, and you want to move away from that. The fact that it's pushed off Route 9 and there's only two buildings that are up there, and you got more of a Main Street coming in helps to move away from that prior concept of just put strip retail everywhere. In the housing mix, I hope that it's more than just apartment buildings or state homes. I hope that there's a mix where everybody that wants to have a house in the town of Poughkeepsie or in that project can look at it and say there's an option. So I hope that there's a good amount of single-family residences, whether it's townhouses, condos, or single-family homes, and some apartments and some things, so that you look at it and overall it's a nice community and it's viable for you guys and for the town as a whole. So I wish you luck, and that I just want to see those numbers on the residential side especially come down to some extent.
Appreciate the comments.
What is the potential at this point of the build out? How many years?
It's hard to say. I mean, the real estate market, is obviously in a kind of a bouncing off the bottom recovery, and we all, hear the housing starts on the radio, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. There's a lack of consistency in the market for the recovery, and it's very spotty at best. Certain markets have some extraordinary recovery, and others are lagging, behind, some of the more aggressive averages. The market here is, has a historical absorption far less than we'd like it to be, so it's challenging. When you look at the dynamic here of the cost to remediate, when I say remediate, I don't necessarily mean hazardous remediation. When you look at the asbestos, the demolition, all of the aspects that make a project like this so challenging, it's very difficult to find the right equation as to what is the absorption rate, how many can we rent and or sell in a particular sector of the market in order to justify the massive amount of capital required to be able to get there. The hard part, and Mr. Krakauer, you kind of made mention of it. How long will this project take? And dovetailing off of your comment, Todd, is that you have to create certain inertia in order to make this happen, but people aren't going to live next to bombed out buildings. So, they're not going to pay any real rent or high sales prices for them. So we have to create a critical mass of, let's clean the slate so we have a nice quality backdrop in order for people to be able to be incentivized to come and live on the property. That means that we have to spend tens of millions of dollars worth of capital before we see the first dollar of revenue, which again is always challenging from an economic perspective. And the crystal ball, which is still flickering after the recession, is difficult to determine what the actual absorption is. But in answer to the generalities of it, we think it's somewhere between a 5 and a 10-year program, depending on how well we can attract. Again, a project like this has to have a certain critical mass because it does have to attract not only local residents, but within a certain radius, because you do create something special and unique so that people do want to live there. It's like any other attraction. It makes it viable from either a day trip or a permanent residency perspective, because there's something unique, there's something friendly, there's something fun, it's a quality lifestyle, whatever it might be, or it's of an architectural caliber that induces people to say, you know what, it's time to sell my house and move to a nicer place. And that's always the challenge with a project like this, which has so much upfront cost. It's very difficult to try to, hit the nail on the head, but we're going to give it our best.
Sure. Okay. Anything else from the board? All right. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Good work. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, presentation from Kelly Liebald regarding LBS subdivision.
Good evening.
Hi, Kelly.
I'm Kelly Leibolt with KRC, representing the applicant. It's so hard to go after such a big project
I was
like
going to
that.
say they got a big
one of you?
team.
I don't even know what to say. I'm done.
Which actually is good. Smaller is better.
Yeah, much better. Okay, so this project is actually located, again, we're here tonight to do the same thing that the last applicant did, which is just to have a discussion with you about a property that we would like to consider for the SHOD, which is your new zoning for the Senior Housing Overlay District. This property is located on 9G. It's just near it was the former Veterans.
Hold that microphone.
The Veterans building, almost as you enter into the city of Poughkeepsie on the right-hand side. And it's single-family residential. So the property owner was before the town about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, and received subdivision approval to do a 5-lot subdivision. So they were going to build a house and live there. They actually went so far as to install a lot of the improvements. So the water lines were installed, the sewer lines were installed. There was actually a connection to Sophia's Way that was physically built. The dead end was built. And so things have changed, and they've decided to do something else with the property. And this SHOD came along, and it seems like a really great use for this strand of 9G. And as we all know, this has been a very difficult section of the town to try to invigorate. So I know there was a nearby project that was done by Ken Carney. It's been very successful, which is the tax credit housing, the residential housing. So they'd like to do something similar here. And the purpose tonight is really just to talk to you about what they want to do. Now, I have smaller sheets if it's easier for you to see. There's the original and the proposed. So this is an aerial photograph of the property, and this is 9G on the bottom. The property, I gave you two different plans. So one is an existing conditions, one is the proposed plan. So the property consists of 7 acres, which is consistent with your SHOD requirements. And after he received subdivision approval, they actually acquired another piece in the back of the property. So it's a larger piece than was originally before the board. And what they're proposing is a mixed-use product. So some retail or office in the front with the senior housing, a part of that component, which is, again, the intent of the SHOD overlay district. What we're proposing is 2 buildings in the front. So those would be 2 two-story buildings. They're 4,500 square feet each. So it would be 4,500 square feet of office retail on the first floor with 4,500 square feet above it with apartments, so senior housing apartments. As you get back to the further part of the property, the second building is 6,200 square feet. That's a 3-story residential structure. And the plan is to do flats on the bottom with 2-story on the top. So if someone was handicapped or you had someone that had physical constraints from going up and down stairs, they could rent the lower units, which would be 1-story. And then the second units above would be 2 stories. So you would have the living area on the bottom and the bedrooms on the top. Building D is set up the same way. That's 4,000 square feet. Again, a 3-story structure. There is a wetland, a wet area in the back here that we would like to try to incorporate into the site, perhaps with some landscaping, or maybe an area that they could walk. There's a road system that would bring you to the parcel in the back. And this is a 1,700 square foot structure. And again, that's 3-story, same scenario with the flats on the bottom and the 2-story on the top. So this is a very, I'll call it sort of a rudimentary layout, all the streetscape things and so forth. Yeah, I know. All the
the layout's terrible, in my honest opinion.
Well, that's a great start.
Because you come in through the middle of 2 office buildings into a residential complex. It just.
Well, the intent of that really follows a lot of the county planning comments, which is to really just frame a property. So you want to have 2 buildings at the front as a frame.
No, I know, but the layout is just.
And have.
The layout.
Kelly, in terms of the cul-de-sac that you show in the middle, how does that driveway interact with that cul-de-sac? It's kind of over.
Well, this is, the actual cul-de-sac is installed, so you're seeing the aerial photograph. So that would have to be removed, and this building would be built in that area. This cul-de-sac would be removed, and I think what we're proposing is just to use Sophia's Way as a emergency only. So I think a lot of the residents in that area that knew that connection was coming would be happy with that. So this would be eliminated. And
So
you'd
what
carry
would
the
be
building
eliminated?
back.
The Sophia Way.
Oh, the cul-de-sac would be?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're
I actually think access through the access to residential through residential, to me, makes more sense than drive. I've seen a few places where you drive through a commercial project to get into a residential area, and it just looks strange. And that's what I say, I just think the layout of this is.
Well, I think
I know it's just a general concept, but it's part.
Yeah, I mean, I understand.
I mean, kind
So-
of the whole, the long winding road to get back to the last building, and then the two other buildings sort of piggyback behind the two commercial.
Well, I think, I'm glad that you're focusing on that, but the intent tonight is really to talk about the big picture of whether or not the board would be receptive to applying the SHOD in this particular property. So there's one more issue that I want to discuss, which is right now this property is single family. So it was a single family property. In the SHOD, it's required to be RM. So we would have to do a rezone of this to RM and at the same time then apply the SHOD overlay district onto it. So our application to the town board would be for the rezone to RM, the overlay district, and then for site
And
plan approval.
how many units are they asking for?
Right now, again, this is a very rudimentary plan, and so we wanted to try to show the maximum build-out. So this shows 87 units, and you're allowed 10 per acre under the SHOD. So there's 7 acres, and you get another 2.5 for every 10,000 square feet of retail that you have. So it's consistent with what's permitted, so that's what we try to
What's the
Retail or
buff?
commercial? It's commercial.
Well, retail, commercial, I say the same.
But I think it's non-retail commercial.
It's called non-residential use.
No, the bump for the density is non-retail commercial, I believe.
It says non-retail building area. For each 10,000 square feet of non-residential, non-retail, you're right.
Right. So these two buildings are intended to be retail, they wouldn't.
The purpose was to show boxes on the plan.
No, I know,
to
but
get a
it's
sense
easier
of
to,
what-
like with the diet, it's easier to look at something that might be realistic versus something it's not.
Well, before
is
we
real.
overlay the shot, they're gonna have to come before us with
No, I
a
know,
plan
no,
that
I
we
know.
give them a
Yeah.
thumbs
No, I
up.
know.
Let's just,
Oh, I know, I'm just
try to
saying.
work through this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get the big picture of whether or not it's something that.
What
you're
is the
receptive to
buffer
for this.
between this project and, what are these residential units? Is that Sophia? What is that, what's the
Sophia.
Those homes there,
That's a 50-foot setback right there.
That's 50?
Yeah, yeah,
and what's across the street on 9G? Commercial?
yes, there's commercial. That's a pretty tough area, you have the printing area, or that printing building that was.
And the
there for
blue
years and
roofed building is the VFW?
is- Correct, yep.
And just the last question I have, the space between the last little proposed building and the big residential building, what is that space? No, not there, I know that's a wetland, but where the driveway is?
That's a cul-de-sac that was built.
No, but why do you have the
This?
big building so far back?
Because
I'm just
this is a
curious.
wetland. This wetland actually extends over to here. So even though it's
Gosh.
wet here, the edge of the wetland extends further out. So the
So how
road
far does your
essentially
driveway
follows-
need to be off that wetland? How far to,
It's, I think it's 25 feet. I forget what the wetland buffer is in the town, but it's either 25 or 50 feet off the edge of the buffer.
and what's behind that big building? You don't, like,
Single-family residential.
Oh, yeah.
what what development?
It's single-family residential house. Back here,
Yeah, what-
there's single-family residences back there.
Is it Oakley?
Is it what?
Like, what's behind
No.
that?
Oakley that runs back there?
What is it? Oakley, Oakdale.
Oakdale.
Yep.
How much space are you showing, how much
This
of
is-
a buffer?
That's 50 to this line, so it's about 60 feet in the back. And, we're not showing a roadway system back there, we're just showing that as being
I
just a
see,
protected area.
there's no parking
Yeah.
back there, so,
Yeah.
all right.
So before we can proceed, really is just to get a sense of what the board thinks, and I think it's kind of, as the prior applicant said, you have to start somewhere.
Well, obviously, one board member doesn't like the design.
Yes, I kind of noted that, I got that right from the beginning, yep.
Yeah, but I think the neighbors will absolutely hate it if you run it through the residential. They're sitting there on the end of quiet cul-de-sac, so all of a sudden you've got 87 units coming through.
Yeah, no, that would be it. That would be
I'm not sure the neighbors will love it to begin with, but the coming into residential to come through two retail buildings into residential to me doesn't make sense. And like I said, I've seen it before and it looks odd. Even if you look at the Lexington at the Galleria, you come down this long driveway past the car dealership, and again, I always feel like that just, I mean, it's residential, it's where people are gonna live. I honestly think Sophia's Way would be better access to residential over there and the commercial is separate.
I disagree
No,
with that one.
no way.
Actually, you go to Adams, you go right past Adams to get to Cherry Hill, so I mean.
But this is just
I think
one-
coming off 9G, I think is a way to go, yes. Adams.
But I
There
just,
too.
I think the layout needs to be.
Well, the layout, yes.
Really, and the
I'd rather keep the traffic on Violet Avenue.
No, that's fine with me. I just, again, I think when you come in through that, the way it's laid out, it doesn't make any sense.
We can work on the layout.
The one building up front in the corner,
This?
up forward more, the existing building
Oh, that.
on 9G.
This one?
Yeah, what is that?
That's it was like an old restaurant. I don't even know if it's still operational.
No.
What's the name of that restaurant? It's like it's Chinese now. It was like college.
Okay, I was
restaurant,
just
it's a
curious
Chinese
what that
restaurant.
was, okay.
Closed right now. It's
It was
closed.
shut down? Was a Chinese restaurant.
I'm just curious.
But, so that's retail.
Okay.
And across the street from that, you have Great Eastern, which is, I think, closed right now. There's not much over there. A few
Yeah.
houses.
It's definitely an area on 9G that's in need of help,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
There's an infusion of
Something.
people and money, so.
Yeah. But do you think you're going to be able to attract commercial into those two buildings?
You know, I think so. You have to kind of come up with something that's attractive for everyone as far as, size and depth. When you have the seniors and you have the density there must be something that's compatible. And that's really the intent of the shot, is try to have uses in the front that would be used by the people who are living there.
Yeah, I think the commercial on the front there is viable. And when I say,
Just don't like
when I
the
say
five-
terrible, I mean not fantastic. How's that?
Okay.
Better?
good. That's
you
fair
soften
enough.
a little bit.
It's not fantastic.
We're getting close to you,
And
exceeding
in order-
your number of describing words.
In order to get fantastic, I mean, I think there's a way to work this where the layout of those buildings makes more sense for the people that are living in
Okay.
there. And whether it's
That's
accessing through Sophia's Way or accessing off 9G, I just think that the idea when you drive through a strip mall to get to your house, it's just not the best planning in the world. So whether you want them to come in through Sophia's Way, I just do think that from a plan, and I'm not a planner, but from a planning point of view, it would seem like driving through a strip mall to get home every day isn't ideal. So
Okay, good. Comment noted.
make it more fantastic.
Anything else?
No, it's a start.
Okay.
It's a start, but I don't want to get into the whole concept of the plan, but the fact that you said the front building's going to have people living upstairs.
Correct.
Looks like there's no parking in the front. I understand it's at the very beginning. I don't like the concept layout at all. I'd like to see more like a senior thing. You could have more of a courtyard or something like that, maybe
Yeah,
reconfigure
all of
buildings or
those
something like
streetscape
that, but
things.
it's,
Yep.
again, the other thing that I don't know that area that well, if you're going to have seniors come up there, I would hope that there's something along there that's going to attract the seniors as a go, because if you're there, and you're not driving, or you're just stuck now in a piece of
isolated.
town where there's nothing available. I mean, so,
Well, I mean, this is 55 and older, I
Yeah.
think is the category. So I'm sure that there'll still be the people that are driving, but I appreciate that. And a lot of that streetscape stuff where people are going to walk, sidewalks and so forth is not in this application at this point.
yeah, no, it's the beginning, so it's a start. I mean, to take a piece like this, it's not an easy project.
Thank
The other issue is you got all the wetlands, do you have enough room using the wetlands to build that much?
Right, we're working with some constraints.
Bill, you have any questions, or?
No.
Joe?
No. This is not the way you're gonna build it. This is gonna be massaged.
Conceptual.
This is just to get the nod of whether or not you think that this would be a good use in this area of 9G.
I mean, obviously, I'd want to see as big a buffer as possible between the existing residential and this project. But, I generally agree with the comments that Stefan and Jay made.
Not fantastic.
And I remember they came in. I remember when he came in with the initial subdivision, the residents on Oakdale didn't really want everything in their backyard. So if I remember correctly, we talked about pines and nice landscaping in
Yeah,
the back.
there's a lot that's been installed here already. So all
Right.
of that landscaping that these residents wanted was already installed in here.
Well, you're going to need that on Oakdale as well.
Yeah, you're
so
saying
plan
over
that
there.
in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and
Well, I
think
like
a
the
lot of
fact that there's no parking back there. That's a big plus.
Yeah, and it's maybe, if there's patios off the back, it would be nicer
Yeah.
to have that wooded area
Sure.
versus having parking in the back. Okay, good. All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
you.
Appreciate it.
All right, that brings us to the end of our committee of the whole. Go to committee reports. Finance,
No report.
fire advisory,
I have nothing to report.
government operations,
Nothing to report.
land use and planning,
Just what's been reported.
personnel,
Nothing to report?
Yep.
recreation.
Nothing to report. We're having a meeting next week on that and the seniors.
The one thing, Tilcon Field had a sort of soft opening. They played baseball this weekend at Tilcon Field, and it was nice to see that, the work from between Tilcon and the town and some local people, that it was open. Both ball fields were being played on. Vinny D'Amato was there announcing the game, which was kind of cool for the kids, and playing music between the batters. So it was a lot of fun. It was impressive how many people came out. Tilcon also donated, in addition to all the work they did with the field, they donated some gravel, and they had one of their employees up there who cleared out the parking area, laid down gravel, and extended the parking. So the first time that I've been up there where there's been a ball game where the parking didn't go all the way down onto Nassau Road, it actually, with
Nice.
two ball fields going full swing, they had plenty of parking, plenty of people, and it was pretty cool to see. So
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Let's see, where did we leave off? Senior citizens,
No, we're having a meeting next week. Everything was canceled this week.
technology and equipment.
Nothing to report.
All right. Infrastructure.
Yes, this is the committee. I still don't understand how I got on this committee.
You were new.
Because I'm new.
It's yours.
Just,
We like you.
From talking to our department heads, we have drainage is an issue no matter where we are in the town. And the last times we've together, that's what's been focused on, the drainage. Whatever the hot spot is right now is what the topic is. The problem will be trying to figure out how to afford any of the repairs. Some of them we're gonna have to do. I don't know whether we start some kind of a capital fund, or we
did we
call it drainage?
I know we discussed it previously, because when a project comes into the town, when it's residential, they pay a recreation fee. And I think we had discussed about doing some sort of drainage fee that goes into a drainage fund. Did we ever figure out whether we can do that, how we do that, whether we can do it for residential and commercial? Because, I mean, one of the problems that we do have is that the project gets built out and you realize the drainage impact after the developer is long gone and the people are being flooded out and there's nobody left to pick on other than us as the town. So it would be nice to build up a fund that we can go back and correct some of the problems of the past, and hopefully when problems in the future come up that were potentially unforeseen in the planning process, we have something there to pay for it versus just reaching in the taxpayer's pocket.
I will finish that up. My recollection is that we can district. We can obviously work out of our budget under a section in the town law for portions of the town, but the ability to charge impact fees that don't relate specifically to a project itself is an ongoing problem in New York. But I will finish that up and let you know.
Okay.
That's basically going to be a problem, because I had them all give me a list. So
And
we come up with some kind of batting order, and which comes to the top of the list. Well, if, there's no good pieces. There's no ones of these that are good. The man that gave a presentation to the board up on Hillis Terrace, that's a bowl. It's a clay-filled bowl. The water doesn't go anywhere except into his house.
And we have, I know Todd and his budget and the finance committee and in our review of it, over the past couple of years, we've tried to build up the money for highway repairs and drainage. And I think last year, I want to say it was this past budget, where
we did.
All the cuts that we had made since we were under the cap, rather than cutting them, we moved those into drainage so that we'd start to
I saw that.
fund up.
You put $100,000 in this year's budget.
I believe it's up to that number, and that
And
that
if
can
we don't use, can we roll that into some kind of a capital fund and let it.
Oh, I think we'll use it.
I think we have the opportunity to use it. The other thing I think we could do with that is leverage it by bonding and using that money to pay the bond if we really had a whole bunch of projects. But we've been trying to, when you have people come in and they complain about these things and you look at it and you say, yeah, no, it's a problem, our only limiting factors don't have the money to pay for it. We've been trying to put that together, and again, I like to say in our town, we pay our bills, and that's one of the things that, again, through Todd, through his budget finance committee, when we go through it, we've been putting that money in there. So 100,000, I think when we started, it was maybe 20.
Yeah, 100,000 is a significant amount of money, and that will be used. I mean, they have projects that need to be done where there's flooding going on. So as you go forward and plan it 2 years, plan it 5 years, plan it 7 years, plan it 10 years, so that when we do budgets, we have a picture of what we have to, it has to be fixed. I mean.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay? Alda Drive, there's some places where there's a real problem. So that's the report, and that's why I'm not happy to be on that committee.
Well, you are the chair. All right, I'd like to suspend the rules for public comment on town issues. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Vic?
Excuse me, I'm dirty, just came off the job. I'm sitting down watching television. I walked out of the house with the microwave going and the television still on. Because I was pretty upset.
The microwave turned off.
I was pretty upset over this plumbing deal where you're going to be going to a public hearing on a plumber coming into town, and the plumbing board, shame on them, they wouldn't extend the courtesy to give them the opportunity to work in our town. We all have one of these, a driver's license. It doesn't say when I go to Connecticut, I got to go take another driver's test, that I got to put an insurance certificate out. I've been a contractor for over 50 years. I'm tired of it. Why does the town of Poughkeepsie have to handcuff anybody coming into this town to work here? I'm saying there shouldn't be a public hearing, that this board should make this happen, rubber stamp this so they can go through. This contractor has worked for many years in Albany. He doesn't have to come back. Do you go back to the motor vehicle and take a new driver's test every 5 years or because somebody asked you? No. I've had this license for many, many years. It's a CDL license. Yes, I take a medical exam and everything. Why do we have to handcuff these people coming into our town? Our town is not friendly to contractors in some respect. Let's take care of this now. It can be done among yourselves right now, and shame on that plumbing board. If they don't have the needs and the capacity to do their job properly, and a lot of these guys that are on the boards are plumbers, and I'm afraid that they're saying, oh, you're not coming into my town and work and do my job. But guess what? The guy that's going to get the job ain't even going to do it because he's just a paper pusher. There's going to be a Joe and Ed and over there, the plumbers that are maybe union guys that are doing the job. And they've been doing it for so many years, and they've got a helper. So, I mean, it's just a piece of paper. Come on, it's real.
Yeah. No, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. In the defense of the plumbing board, I think the way the code is written, it really does handcuff them. I don't think they're allowed because of this crazy reciprocal rule that they can't allow it. But I agree with you, Vic. I agree, kind of free enterprise, especially with the low bidding process in place.
Vic, the only thing I want to say, though, is this problem exists. It began back in November, and we're in May. So it becomes an emergency all of a sudden because now they actually have to do something. They should have come in to address. The plumbing board could have addressed it a long time ago. The town board could have addressed it a long time ago. The reason it's sort of blowing up is that the plumber didn't do what he needed to do. And again, you have a driver's license, you can drive wherever you want, so can I. I have a license to practice law. I can't go 45 minutes into Connecticut and practice law because
but I don't think he realized.
No, but one of the things that you do, people in the trades have a general idea what the rules are. I gotta imagine that this plumber, and do you know who he is?
No, I don't know who he is.
All right, so because you said he's a great plumber, he's worked all over the place. But I gotta imagine if he is a good plumber, he understands that there are a general set of rules. And he should have tried to follow them. The fact that it's now becoming an issue, if it wasn't the library district, I'm not sure if we would have been tripping over ourselves to try to figure out how to resolve this, because they created the mess, and then they're coming to us saying, oh geez, by the way, we don't have a licensed plumber. We're trying to correct that. And yes, some of the things that, I agree with some of the things that you said, I don't agree with at all. I don't think the plumbing board was necessarily trying to hang anybody up.
No, I don't think they were either.
And they don't they don't really have the authority to hang anybody up here. If that guy came in November, the plumbing board could have hung him up over this stuff. So
Our code
that's what I say.
isn't
We're
perfect.
trying to
It's tweaking, but we are trying to resolve
we're trying to
this.
solve that. So
It doesn't cost the taxpayers
The
more
reason
money.
we license plumbers is there was a house last year in my district where they used, the contractor was not licensed. He didn't pull any permits. I don't know who the plumber was. They put the plumbing in, they turned on the water, they walked out of the house. They didn't hook up the toilet on the 3rd floor. That family came home, opened their front door, and water flowed through 3 stories of a house. They had to go out and then completely gut it and start over again. That's the reason why they're licensed. We want qualified people working in the houses
That's
so
not being.
protect the residents.
But the
I hear that.
opinion is,
Stefan, I'm talking right now. I hear all these horror stories all the time, but the idea is what I'm saying is that the courtesy was not extended. Whether the man came in here, he thought he probably could have got the courtesy. Many years ago, they'd say, oh, listen, if you get the blessing, you can work under another contractor in town if you've come into town. And, okay, maybe this plumber over here would, okay, I'll lend you my license to do the job. For a fee, and they could borrow and work under your license. There was a town, Beacon. You could not do nothing in Beacon unless one person was only licensed to do street work in Beacon. You could not touch anything, and it was terrible. Mm-hmm. Let's not do that here.
Vic, next. I hear what you're saying, and you make, always make good points. We have a public hearing next week, so you're certainly welcome to.
I hope it doesn't have to go to that. I hope
well,
that
it's
you
going to
do
go
something
to
among
public
yourselves and
hearing.
get it done this week.
Have to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vic.
Process-wise, Mr. Genotti, this is a local law that the town adopted.
The
In order to undo it, they have to go through.
Yeah, it's kind of what we have to go through, Vic.
Well,
unfortunately.
Right, and you can complain and say what you want, but there is a process and there is rules. And the idea that we should just come in and rubber stamp it, in order to change the law, you have to go through a process. And again, it's not something, we didn't set up a hurdle to trip these guys up. They tripped over something that was right there in front of them back in November. So, you could disagree with whatever you want, but the problem lies in the plumber out there. The plumbing board, whatever it does or doesn't do, in this situation, they didn't screw it up.
Let me just say one thing, and I'll be done with this whole thing. As a contractor, okay, if I want to go to work in Putnam County, I got to get a Putnam license, Westchester license, Rockland license. But then when you go to Westchester and you want to work in White Plains, you got to get a White Plains license. So you want boom, 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 boom. You're sending out certificates of insurance and getting all. And wait a minute, you could have 45 stickers on the side of your truck. I'm tired of it. I'm really tired of it. It's handcuffing. Where is the deal where a guy can go out and make a living? It's like the permits on the dump trucks. Well, you got a license on a dump truck. Well, in Putnam County, you got to have a different license to carry the load. Over in Orange County and Ulster County, I can't go across the bridge. I go across the bridge, I get a ticket because my truck doesn't have the overload permit to go there. So I can't go there. So now if I want to go to Kingston, I got to permit there, permit there, permit there. So all of a sudden, I've got 5 permits. It's gotten to be too much. We got to streamline it. I hear Neil Wilson going on with changing the rules and regulations, but are we handcuffing the taxpayers and the whole town by making it too much?
Well, we're trying to solve this problem. I think because
Vic, if I could just inform you a little bit regarding the plumbing board. There were 2 issues that were supposed to come before the town board regarding the plumbing board. The plumbing board got together and resolved the other issue, dealing with a plumber that's not licensed in the town to the best of their ability. This was one that they couldn't resolve, I believe, because
I don't think they
issues with the way our code is written and the way Albany does what they do. And again, the best way to have solved this problem before it became a mess was back in November when this plumber got the job. So it wasn't the town board, and as far as I can tell, at the end of the day, it wasn't the plumbing board either. So your issue, you're concerned about licensing. Yeah, sometimes I wonder why you license everybody to do everything everywhere. The basic idea of pulling a plumbing permit and getting inspections, to me, is where the public safety side of it comes in. And we as a town and municipality, we're protected because if people follow the rules and get their permits, I think that's the protection that we have. Electricians do work in our town and aren't licensed and have to pull permits. Contractors do work in our town and aren't licensed, they have to pull permits. To me, that process works just fine. And last week we had Building Inspector Appreciation Day. And I pointed out to Wayne, who was here, that I think it's important that people understand that the building permit process isn't to try to gouge people for money, it's to try to make sure the rules are followed appropriately. And here, that's all we're trying to do.
Yep.
So it wasn't any, you have an issue with licensing, that's great, a lot of people do, and I'm not saying that I don't, but the reality is, in this situation, the plumbing board doesn't deserve to get counted.
No, in this case, I don't think they could solve this problem, Vic. We're trying to solve it as best we can, but.
I'm sitting home and it came across different.
Okay, no, I appreciate your comments. We always like to hear from you. Hope you didn't speed to get here.
It might have been interference from the microwave, kind of.
The last time I raised here, this time I didn't.
All right, good. Thanks,
All right,
Vic.
thank you.
Anybody else? Doreen?
Go home and finish your dinner, Vic.
It's probably burned by now, Vic.
Well, I disagree on several things with Vic, but I think the main issue here is the fact that if you knew you had the job in November, why would you wait until May? That's, and again, I have some concerns about some of the contractors being used there based on some of the problems that we've run into already. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that there are several active construction sites in the town that have outstanding invoices that they haven't paid. Means that their escrow accounts are not being replenished the way they should. And I don't understand why that's allowed to happen. I mean, I had to put a fence up, and I had to come in and get a permit and pay my $10.
Where did you get the information?
Freedom of Information law.
Well, obviously, I know that you do that a lot, but how do you know that? Because I wasn't aware of that.
I filed the Freedom of Information law.
Right.
I got it today. The town clerk can verify
but how
that.
do you know what the escrow accounts are?
Because I asked for the amounts.
Who are they? If you don't mind, who are the?
Flynn subdivision has outstanding invoices of $5,000.
Just give me the names of who, just so I can write on that. Flynn?
Flynn, Neptune Business Park, Stratford Farm, and IBM. The IBM one is the low amount, but the highest is $6,321.
Okay.
So,
all right, good.
What's the total?
Well, let's see, 17,000.
Now, did Flynn was he shut down for the winter? Did he start back up again or no?
I asked for outstanding escrow, whatever. So yeah, and so those were the four. So, okay.
It's actually not bad.
No, it's not bad.
And then the only other thing, Stefan, when you had said about the building inspector as far as the plumbing was concerned, you said Tim Sickles is perfectly capable, and I have to agree he is. But again, he's a building inspector now, so if you change the rules, you don't know who the building inspector will be in the future. You know who the board members are, so you need to take that into consideration when you're changing the laws. It's really not person specific because you don't know who it will be.
I actually went through that thought process, and again, Tim Sickles is a very good building inspector, extremely honest guy, takes his job very seriously, and I have complete faith in him making that decision. And when I thought it through and said, geez, the next guy might not be as good, the reality is the next town board could always change that anyway. I think the change that we kind of put together here makes overall sense in allowing some
just pointing out that it's really not person specific, it's job. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. Anybody else? Jane, do we have anything?
Nope. All right.
Great. Make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Town board adjourns at 8:36 p.m.